Hello. I'd like to welcome Joe Keegan to the Rule of Thirds podcast. I know Joe for several years. I met him when he was doing representation for designers. I still annoy Joe with the odd text here and there asking questions about the industry, which he kindly always comes back with advice. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Joe. Appreciate it. Yeah, what are you up to at the moment? What are you doing?
So yeah, firstly, much appreciated. I feel honoured to come on to the podcast and be given the space. So
Appreciate that.
um, yeah, I do recruitment for like motion, video, 3D. So I work with a lot of the sort of leading 3D studios, production companies around London or the world. And then also I sort of split my time between doing that and also running an awful lot of studio as well, where we kind of plug into brands to help them produce the kind of content they want to produce and sort of scale productions and do content in a more sustainable way due to sort of everything that's going on at the moment with sort of the industry and stuff like that. So um yeah, I mean, I suppose that's in sort of a short sentence would probably be like where I split my time at the moment, to be honest.
Awesome. And where did it all start for you? Like, how did you kind of find yourself within the creative sector?
I mean, I started in the creative sector from when I was young. So I started from college. So
Oh, wow.
I came straight out of college. University wasn't really for me. I wanted to do media production. So I started doing work experience, like running on sets, those kind of things, music video sets, just getting work experience, shooting and producing my own stuff. So I used to work within music scenes, so like a lot of UK urban music and stuff like that. So I worked doing that for about 7 years from college. So I ended up working my way up to sort of working with some decent names, people
Wow.
that I respected quite highly. But I think
Can you name drop any big ones for us?
so I'd done a few pieces with like So Solid Crew. I'd done a
Oh, sick.
with Gets as well. I don't know if you like know UK
Yeah,
music.
I do, yeah.
I done some stuff with so a few people that were kind of I looked at as quite sort of notable people in that kind of
Yeah.
space. I was actually pretty happy with.
That was a really exciting time in music, like super exciting. Felt
Yeah,
like it was start something new.
I think the problem with like music at that time was it was just before urban music become sort of like mainstream in
Yeah,
the sense that
yeah.
there was loads of good guys that were doing really good stuff and producing really good music, but you wasn't really getting on radio play. So like a lot of the stuff that I would work with, like Radio One Extra would be like the mainstream sort of as
Yeah,
mainstream
yeah,
as
yeah.
you get like Charlie Sloth or stuff like that. Days of SBTV and stuff like that.
Wow.
So um that's a bit of a blast from the past.
That
But like
brings
hey,
me right because I was big into the dubstep scene. Like,
yeah,
when I
yeah,
was living in Cork, I
yeah.
wanted to go to London eventually because the dubstep and grime scene was taking off. So I didn't know you worked in that. You were
Yeah,
within those circles. That's crazy
yeah,
fun.
yeah. So I that was my circles for about 7 years, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, as probably anyone who would tell you in music, the money in music's not great. So
Oh, it's
um
shocking.
yeah, I then moved. I was always in work, but I just wasn't making enough money for what I wanted to kind of go and do. So effectively, then I decided to sort of see where I could sort of put my skill set realistically.
Yeah,
Know a lot of sort of video production and all those kind of things. I thought, why not just chance my arm at like recruitment and try stuff like that for a little bit. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll go and do something else.
yeah.
Um, so then I ended up doing that for, well, I still kind of, as I said, do that now partly, but I was doing that full time for about 7 years at a couple of different agencies. Worked my way up through the ranks and stuff like that to get some cool clients and whatnot. And then now the last couple of years, I've kind of been working for myself in all honesty. So I started on Orthodox 2 years ago, and it's just it's gone pretty well now. To be honest,
Yeah.
there's about 5 people on the team at the moment, and we're looking to continually grow and stuff like that. Obviously, the market's not been ideal recently, but I mean we've still done not too bad out of it. Um, and we've got plans to move forward and stuff like that in the future with various different avenues. So
That's awesome. That's really
it's a bit
cool.
all over the place journey that I've got, to be honest.
That's the best one. So, do you think working in production had gave you a leg up with recruitment. Surely it did, because you understood some of the
Yeah,
software, some of the tools. You could
but
see a good edit straight away, and you
yeah,
could tell if a designer or a client was bluffing you.
yeah, 100%. Like for me, I started with zero knowledge of really recruitment, and I can pick it up quite quickly. And I think some people start with loads of knowledge on recruitment and can't pick up the other side quite quickly. Like for
Yeah.
me, identifying a good portfolio or knowing if someone is actually able to do what they're talking about doing or whether they're sort of bluffing it a little bit was never something that was hard for me because I've
Mhm.
been in the shoes of the other people. So it kind of it was definitely a leg up for sure. Like it made me stand out from day
Yeah.
one. Effectively, if I go and tell clients that I actually have production knowledge and I actually was the people that I am recruiting for and supply, straight away it gives you that air of like
Confidence, a bit of trust, isn't it? Yeah.
it kind of makes you stand out and it legitimizes you a little bit. I found for me anyways, it was kind of a bit of a legitimizing factor. Because I
How did that work out for you as with your, I guess, like, with your peers? So you had a leg up in terms of like the know-how. Did that is it did were you almost like an educator in that respect for your peers and stuff? Because so often, I guess one of the biggest complaints from designers is, oh, they don't really know the software I use, or they don't know the tools I use, and there can be like miscommunication on both sides. And
yeah,
I know designers who've been put in jobs. It's like, oh, this wasn't the brief, and it's not necessarily the rep's fault. It's just they didn't have the leg up on the knowing the tools and having the
yeah.
inside knowledge.
I think sometimes it comes from. I mean, there are still good reps and agents or whatever it is you want to call people. There are still really good ones out there that have not been on the tools but have just had
Okay.
loads of experience. I think. Um, But I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't also a significant amount of people that actually don't know what they're talking about and actually don't really ask the questions they're supposed to, which
Yeah.
does lead to the other stuff that happens.
Because there's also a huge pressure on them as well to hit like targets and deadlines and that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think what people have to remember as well from an agency background in like recruitment as per se, it's very dog eat dog. It's very brutal.
Yeah.
So like if you don't go and hit your targets or you don't go and deliver what you're supposed to deliver that your employer is telling you you're going to deliver, you're out of a job. So like I think
Yeah.
a lot of the time recruiters get a rough end of the stick in the sense of like it, I mean I when I first started I was made to do stuff that I didn't actually agree with in terms
Hmm.
of like how you go about things or how I was supposed to go about things. But you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place in all
Yeah.
honesty in that sort of sense because you have to do it to keep a job, but then also there is that element of like there's a human element as well. It just depends
Yeah.
how much you're prepared to like sacrifice that kind of stuff. I think.
Yeah.
Um, I do believe that like most people start with good intentions
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I'd agree with you,
pressure
100%.
and stuff like that. It does get the better of people sometimes. Um, I
Yeah, I do empathize, especially with if I'm in contact with like a newer rep. Um, I'm now experienced enough to know that, look, I'll be honest with you, like I can't do this job, and I'll give them maybe a leg up in maybe where to go and stuff. But
yeah,
I guess my young, brash, inexperienced self maybe was a bit blunt about stuff in the past. But when you realize, like, you're dead right, like everyone wants to help everyone,
yeah,
everyone's under the same pressure, and this idea, and we've talked about before, like this kind of almost damaging myth that everyone else is rolling in it and they're just
yeah,
not. We're just trying to get by.
yeah, yeah. It's weird because I mean I've been on the other side of like my background is obviously video, so like post production and video and stuff I already knew, but with regards to like 3D and the other stuff that I do now, like high end 3D simulations, those kind of things, I didn't have an absolute clue what any of that stuff
Yeah,
was
yeah,
when I started off. It's just that's super specialized. But I think sometimes what some people make the mistake of is almost trying to make it seem like they're an expert when they're actually not. Like when
mhm,
I was learning 3D, I kind of would phone designers and just say, look, I'm learning this. And like any information you can give me or provide me with regards to like
That's awesome.
programs, like how it works, how long things take, like what questions I should be asking, then let me know because I mean I'm new to this in the sense of like I'm not new to like the whole production process, but I'm new to this because it's not something that I've done before. I think sometimes recruiters that's where they sometimes let themselves down, especially like junior recruiters maybe is having to feel like actually, do you know what? It's all right to actually just be
Yeah,
learning on the job a little bit and like tell
yeah.
people, you know what, I'm actually learning this because I mean, I'm sure like you on the other side, if someone was to ask you like if they could ask you a few questions and sort of help them be filled in on sort of like different parts of the skill set and stuff. I mean, most designers, I never had any designers that were like, no chance, mate. Like,
Oh, they love it. They love telling out their technical knowledge. It's like part of
you
our ego. It's a full makeup.
get someone on the phone and ask them like, how do you do this? Like, people love it. They
Yeah,
just you sit there and talk to you for however long you need and answer however many questions you need. So that's how I was able to learn quickly. But I think, um,
and
yeah,
you build a relationship that way with the
yeah,
designers, and that again builds that trust thing,
because
over
you deal
time.
with people, right? Like, it's there's people on each end of the phone. Like, I don't I hate being the person who only messages all the time when I need something or stuff like that. Sometimes I'll try and check in with people. I mean, it's harder for me to do now because I'm
Yeah,
so
so
more restricted with time. But um, often I'll try and just check in with people as much as I can, just even to see availability for future or what projects they've been up to, those kind of things. There is like a personal element as well because I mean, we don't have personal relationships now with the way that we work. Like, kind of, what's the point, really? I think
yeah,
that's why
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
COVID is like there's very much at the moment is kind of is a very transactional. Our relationships have become very transactional. There's not
I
really like
agree.
personal relationship. It's very much
There is that element of like being in house and being in like I don't think it should be like forced people in the office, but there's definitely something different and more personable about working next to someone, like having the random conversation or just having the random
I
thought.
love like I can happily work for myself and have worked for myself for years and like I can still probably be pretty efficient in working for myself, but it's just not the same. Like
Yeah,
I think a lot of people now since COVID, a lot of people now are getting to the point where actually, do you know what? I can work from home, but actually I don't really want to
yeah, I'm
necessarily.
getting like that a little bit as well.
The working space, you get cabin fever. Like it's something I've struggled with the last couple of weeks. Is like you end up working at home and all of a sudden it's like a week's gone by and like you've not really met that many people face to
I've done
face.
anything, yeah.
And that's like that's even for me and I meet and talk to loads of people each week. So if you're like a designer or at something like that, realistically you could go ages without talking to people.
Which is
So
whether you're introverted or extroverted or a bit of both,
yeah,
terrible for the mind. It's
yeah.
awful. Yeah, you
And
need to be talking to people.
creative either. Like I think there's also that element of sort of you need to bounce off people. You need to be creative and stuff like that. So like when creative businesses ask people to go inside a little bit more, I actually can 100% see it because like
Yeah,
you need to ingrain culture and you need to sort of have that side of the business where like you actually know the people that you work with. And I think
yeah,
sometimes as like senior people, obviously everyone wants to work from home and it's convenient and you save money, but actually you kind of owe it to the next generation of people to be
yeah.
able to be like reachable in the sense of like to show someone how to do stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so true. Because I do feel for juniors, interns, and like the younger generation at the moment. Like, how do you, and that goes across both industries, like recruitment and design. It's how do you, everyone kind of has a mentor or someone they look
yeah,
up to that they work next to. Like,
yeah,
what does the younger generation do? They can't just turn and ask someone a question when it pops into their head. That question goes away, you forget it, and then it comes up again, and you don't have the answer still.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's only so much stuff you can learn. Like I used to learn like After Effects stuff on Video Copilot, like back in the day.
Yeah. Wow.
That's still is that still going? I've not seen it.
Yeah, he hasn't posted anything in a while. I think it's going to become like a relic and a museum piece.
Yeah,
Video Copilot.
like, proper old school blast from the past. I used to spend hours like on my weekends just like going through Video Copilot, but at the same time, like I can't just learn on Video Copilot. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I have to go and learn from other people. Like it just it doesn't. always translate to being like a good avenue. So I think that's one thing that we miss now is the transfer of knowledge from like one to
Mhm.
another, especially with like AI and stuff coming in. The
Yeah,
transfer of knowledge from like human to human is invaluable, really, because
yeah.
otherwise it's just
Well,
what.
where did the AI get it from? Humans. So yeah, it's so true. What I saw on your on the Orthodox website, which I found quite interesting, is you're the anti-recruitment agency. I'd love
Yeah,
you to expand on that. Like, what does that mean? What does that entail? And kind of what's the? It feels like a bit of a USP there, but an interesting one.
yeah. You like that? You like that
Yeah,
phrase?
yeah. No, I don't like the phrase. I was just like, I never heard a recruiter say I'm the anti-recruitment
Yeah,
agency.
yeah, yeah.
I,
I mean,
it's interesting. It's going against the grain for a purpose.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, I suppose the reason that I chose to do that for like the recruitment part was, um, like I'm not probably the typical what you'd expect from like a recruiter. I don't come from a typical background.
Yeah.
I've never really spoken the way that like a lot of recruiters would necessarily say is the best way to go and speak to a client on new business meetings and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Um, I don't really have the same approach necessarily
Yeah.
as everyone else. Like I don't really. I'm not like a normal recruiter in that sense. Not saying that I'm anything special, but like I just don't do things the same way as like what typical recruitment
Yeah.
agencies do, like KPIs and sort of you have to be this sort of Monday to Friday in the office 9 to 5. It's like I just don't believe in any of that stuff. Um, and also I don't think actually recruitment businesses do certain industries justice in the sense
Yeah.
of I think the knowledge part of it actually now is becoming more of a problem in the sense of more and more people enter recruitment, for example, into sort of motion or video or whatever it is, and actually they don't understand the skill sets that they're talking about. Like
Yeah.
they don't come from an industry background. Ideally, like if I could, I would build a recruitment agency solely off people who are from the industry,
Okay.
from industry side, because the recruitment part, in all honesty, is not hard to teach people. The actual
Okay.
knowledge, like understanding of like going to a business and understanding how their workflows operate and like what kind of time pressures they're under, what kind of person they might need. Like
Mhm.
that's the skill in recruitment, not finding someone on LinkedIn who's got the right skill set. Like
Okay.
that's only part and parcel of it. I know loads of people and certain clients of mine that technically on paper, yeah, they could go and do the job, but I just know they won't get on with the client as like a personality fit. So it's just not going to
That's
work.
so interesting. Yeah. That's so
Um, it's not really a numbers game in that sense. It's more of a sort of I'd rather send one person that's like exactly right and I know is going to get on rather than I can go and put a post out on LinkedIn and get 50, 60 responses in an hour and send however many people they want. It's not going to achieve what they actually want to as a business. I think sometimes people in recruitment or like with a hiring process, they underestimate the power of like personalities and like
yeah.
background knowledge of like, is this person actually a right fit for our business rather than sort of, is this person the right fit for our role?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I suppose that may be a long winded approach to sort of say that it's kind of an unorthodox approach, for want of a better term, to doing recruitment and how things are supposed to be done.
And do you
Um,
see the where do you see the recruitment industry going at the moment? Because I guess we had this massive pre-COVID, it was booming a bit for sure, especially in my sector. Then COVID hit and there was kind of a turbulent period, and then you had the demand for everything, and it was
yeah,
just exploded. And now everyone's taking a step back and going, "Are we racing to the bottom? What's
yeah,
happening with rates? Where
yeah.
do you see that we're shifting?" And I guess there's like this is a massive question, potentially with a big answer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll try and keep it not such a big answer.
It's okay. Go.
I mean, I suppose like recruitment as an industry, I think is in a tough spot at the moment, if I'm honest. Just because I think less businesses are going to need recruiters in the sense of, or feel like they need recruiters in the sense of they can try and put a post out on LinkedIn and get however many responses and probably get someone quite cheap. I think the actual business model for recruitment agencies the misconception I think from candidates sometimes and clients is like recruitment agencies are really like rolling in it and sort of like charging loads of fees and making like
Yeah.
loads and loads of cash. And actually, it's not really the actual. That's not
Yeah,
the.
it's not true. No.
I've like for my payroll, for example, all of my freelancers, if I've got 20 freelancers working for me on payroll, I've got to somehow have a facility to be able to run payroll for people to protect payments and stuff. So that includes stuff like insurances, it's got bank costs. I've got to sort of leverage like higher amounts of VAT each quarter. I've got to do all of the other stuff, including an accounts team to be able to go and actually process those things. So, like,
Mm.
when people look at fees that recruiters charge, I think like you look at the larger number and think actually like they're probably taking like whatever the charge rate is, they probably take like a crazy amount on top for the charge rate. But if you break it down as to like money I actually take in my pocket compared to all the other costs that I've got to go to do and protect people,
Yeah.
um it again is not as big as people think sometimes. um but I think recruitment as a whole, in the sense of like the actual industry recruitment, I still don't think is done properly in the sense
Okay.
of I think it's very much like a sort of just throw something out there and like hopefully someone comes back, in the sense of companies now on LinkedIn and wherever it is they post jobs know that they put a job ad out and they can get 200 responses, no problem.
Yeah, especially in this economy at the moment.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they think that like that's going to necessarily produce the right kind of result. I think it's probably with how competitive it is, like salary wise, it's in a bit of a tough spot at the moment, just purely
Yeah.
for the fact of the studios are getting squeezed on one end, and like contractors, freelancers, employees are getting squeezed on the other end in the sense of cost of living. Um,
Yeah.
all those factors that kind of comes into it, I think. Um, But I mean, I don't think salaries of that are that bad at the moment, in the sense of like they've not gone down as from what I can see. They've just not gone up, right?
Yeah, they're just stagnated. That's what it feels like. They're stagnated a bit. And I guess it's that awful situation where, because there's such a supply at the moment, that some companies know they can maybe not necessarily go up, but they can definitely squeeze maybe a couple of grand off
Mm,
off what's seen
yeah,
as an average salary.
yeah,
And it's just the name of the game, because I guess this goes to my next point, which is, we all think everyone else is rolling in it, but they're not, right? So
yeah,
agencies are kind of suffering a little bit, do you think, at the moment, from that concept that, like, a lot of people think like advertising agencies make a lot of money, and some do, absolutely, but the margins for most, from what I've read and researched, seem to be quite tight. And is that playing a factor at the moment also?
yeah. So you mean advertising
Yeah,
agencies,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
The problem with advertising at the moment is they're screwed basically. Like a lot of these
Yeah,
big agencies, if you talk to people internally at these agencies, a lot of them are screwed for various reasons. um, the model's not fit for purpose
yeah,
anymore. So you can't produce the kind of stuff you need to go and produce in the structures that they have. But
yeah,
I think so. I mean, this is one thing that like maybe contractors don't see when they go into a place, but mostly if you go into an agency, they'll have a markup multiplier where they'll
yeah,
mark up your day rate to a client that they go and charge it. Usually, it would be two, three, four times, whatever it is,
yeah,
depending on the size of the agency. So realistically, if someone's on £350 a day, for example, they would maybe be charged out at like anywhere from £1,500 a day to like
yeah,
£2,000 a day in some places. But that's not all money into the agency's pocket
yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
to go towards like if I think about big advertising agencies that probably we both worked with, the office costs are huge, the
massive.
salary costs are huge, the infrastructure and like project management systems they have to implement, and sort of all of the other stuff that they have to actually go
Yeah,
and do is actually meaning that these agencies are expensive to work with for clients for sure, but they don't make loads and loads and loads of money in terms of like margin profits.
yeah.
When you're actually looking at it from a business perspective, once
Sometimes I've seen big agencies even break even.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard stories of agencies losing money and just taking projects on and just say, look, we'll stomach the loss to keep a client, basically.
Yeah.
Some of the agencies don't really actually make as much money as you actually think, which is
And
why
there's a whole season as well where they have to pitch for free, which is just
yeah, and
massive
pitching
resource
is
and money.
way more of a common thing now. So like you'll see agencies a lot of the time will almost routinely pitch on at the moment sometimes like almost project to project, whereas before you would almost pitch on accounts where like
Yeah,
you pitch for, I don't know, the Tesco account, and like you are then the partner for Tesco's for like whatever it is specifically that they want to go and
yeah,
do, whereas now brands all want to see more value for money. They don't want to go and spend however many £100,000 on like a few bits and pieces with like an agency and stuff now. It just it doesn't really make sense for them to go and do that, which is where agencies have problems in the sense of they have to find ways now to justify why they're so much more expensive because
yeah,
smaller outfits, independent outfits can do the exact same work, but they'll be like half the price of
yeah,
these kind of, and they'll do it twice as quick. So
yeah,
I think a lot of those agencies are struggling at the moment in the sense of their budgets are being squeezed. Um, so they can't necessarily keep going the way that they're going without trying to either try and pay less, or a lot of them, the answer is usually to cut out recruitment fees or various other avenues that they're trying to go and do to try and save money. They're just trying to stay afloat, most of these
yeah,
places. Um,
yeah,
why we've seen so many redundancies and stuff like that. I mean, you see places like Technicolor and stuff like that going on there as an industry, and you look and you think, actually, do you know what? It's actually not looking too great in terms of like the cost of
yeah, yeah.
living.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. So it brings me to another point. So you had that issue with Technicolor where they were trying to get that too big to fail model,
Mm,
similar to some of the WPP ventures. And you wonder now that like you have these massive conglomerate agencies, and I've been in agencies where they're pitching against agency or studios they own.
yeah,
It's, again, it's a slightly bigger pie, but does that cause a problem, like a domino effect down the line? Do you think?
I don't think it. I don't think it does. I think competition's a good thing in the
Yeah,
sense that there should never be, and I think actually part of the problem we have is like big agency conglomerate networks that like I won't mention like by names in case someone wants to come and sue me, but um like these big agency networks that have these big accounts that are all completely sewn up with certain brands, and like
okay,
no one can operate outside of a certain network for that brand.
okay,
We've had a few conversations with various different parts of the industry for like the unorthodox studio, where brands have said, "Look, I'd love to work with a setup like yours, but like we can't because we've got a contract with so and so or whatever it
okay,
is." I think a lot of these big brands, the reason that a lot of the work's not being divvied out sometimes is because actually these contracts are really heavy duty contracts that no
oh,
one.
like airtight.
Yeah, so, like,
Wow.
you have to go through, even if you want a PowerPoint deck done, you have to go through
Mhm.
the X, Y, and Z agency, which actually I think stops a lot of the work filtering down.
And it is at that elite level where people will find out, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's like if you're found out in that situation as a person on a brand side, I mean, I don't know what the repercussions would be. I've not seen the contract, so like I'm assuming it's a stern telling off at the very least.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that's part and parcel of the problem that we're in now is like actually a slight monopoly in the sense of these big brands have kind of been monopolized by the big networks
Yeah,
and stuff, which kind of stops stuff filtering through because if those brands now, or if those agencies, sorry, decide they're going to keep everything in house, that's however many £1 million worth of work they're keeping in house for their internal team that doesn't necessarily go out to like independents or
so true.
freelancers or those kind of things.
Do you
When
think that stifles growth at the startup level within the creative sector a little bit? Not massively, but like if you could divvy out that work more, surely you'd see like indie studios or go into kind of super studios quicker.
I think you would do, yeah. Like, I mean, if there would be more work around. So I think like I don't think the model of having a bigger and better approach works anymore
Yeah,
necessarily. I don't think from an infrastructure perspective, it just doesn't work. Like your bottom lines become so heavy that like you can't pivot and do the things that you actually want to go and do. So like agencies, larger ones, I think the trouble that they're having at the moment is they've got massive teams of internal people because they try and keep everything in house because they can mark internal people up more than what they would technically mark a freelancer up to.
it's true.
But at that same time, if a client comes to you with a brief, then by de facto, if you've got 20 video editors on your books and you don't have work for them to do, if a client sends you a brief, you instantly sit there and think, actually, right, how can we use this brief to utilize these video
Yeah.
editors rather than
I
like
never thought of that.
or stuff like that. So like it distorts your ability to be creative. Like you can't be genuinely creative now in a large setup. I mean, if you
Yeah.
talk to any people who are big creatives in those agencies, they'll probably all tell you that like almost all of their stuff, probably 8 times out of 10, the work they do just doesn't even make it out. So like they can't get
Mm.
work out. So you're just wasting your time. And that's
Yeah,
the structure of it. Whereas a smaller place, if you partner with say another smaller place, you're able to leverage like and create an actual genuinely good idea specific to the brief,
yeah,
not approaching it from the sense of right, I've got 10 3D artists that like I need to get find time for because we've hired a new 3D team. Like we must do 3D for this brief.
yeah. You're almost like forcing
Yeah,
a solution that like to a problem that isn't there necessarily.
yeah. It doesn't enable you to go and do
The
other things
thinking part more.
you go and do.
Yeah,
I think like the actual to go back to the other point of monopolies, competition for places should always be there. I think, in my
yeah,
opinion, you should have relationships with people, but the industry needs to be competitive in the sense of like you need to be always pushed to go and create better things. Like everyone owes it to clients and sort of consumers and everything like that. We just don't see good advertising
yeah,
anymore.
yeah, yeah,
That is because people actually they got contracts sewn up anyway. They don't really care.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's so true. Which actually, so this is brings me to another point, and it's a point I think I missed for about 7 years of my career. It's that what's the purpose of this ad? Like, what's the outcome? What's the kind of
mm,
measurable goals?
yeah,
And you mentioned value there for clients. And it took me a few books and a few presentations to realize when I go in to talk to a client, sometimes it's worth going. And I've actually lost work doing this. I go, what's the measurable outcomes of the video? And they realize they've just come to me to make a video that they have no idea what it's for. And I've
yeah,
lost the work. But I'd rather work on a project with purpose that
mm.
they want something measurable out of. Where do you think, and it's such a like open question, but where do you think clients are looking for more value? Is it like, I guess, engagement? Is it sharing the brand? I guess it depends on the platform and channel, but where do you think they're lacking the value most at the moment?
I think yeah, that's a good question. So like I think a lot of the time the value actually stems from not having, like you said, like a purpose for the content that they're producing. Like what one of the reasons that we've for the studio started implementing like workshops where we for our first project with clients, we'll always include like a mandatory kind of workshop where we would sit
Cool.
down, work through what you want to achieve from this video, but also like what is your brand looking to achieve from content and how you look to leverage content in the future, because you don't create stuff with a holistic approach of like we create stuff with like the one common goal and you
Yeah.
just start throwing stuff out it in this day and age it doesn't have the same effect really. Like you need
It's
to be able,
lost immediately. Yeah.
you need there's so many pieces of content out there now, you just get lost and you might as well just go and shout into the void of space endlessly because it just will get lost somewhere else if you don't have like an actual measurable sort of yardstick of what you're looking to achieve in the sense of not necessarily statistics on Instagram or LinkedIn or any of
Yeah.
those things, because I mean marketing can go and do that and actually you can get a lot of numbers and actually not really get a lot from it.
Yeah, that's
think
true.
it's more so brands probably look for value in the sense of someone being able to help them be agile enough and produce stuff specifically enough to take advantage of trends and stuff like that. I
Yeah,
think
that's so
a
true.
lot of like big companies at the moment, it's stuff when it's really slow at the moment, like trends on social media and things like that, they can be a couple of weeks and that's it. It's by the time you put work out, the trend's gone. At which point, it's just a pointless bit of
Yeah,
content you
yeah.
waste.
It's lost. That's so true. Again, like it doesn't have to be like, oh, we got this much engagement, we got this much, we got all these comments. There's value in like hidden areas like the workflow or the
Yeah,
pipeline or how you respond to a brief or not even responding. You're just showing the client things that you
yeah,
think they might like, I guess.
yeah. I think like clients, what they want more than anything, I think, is for someone to help them with an area of expertise in the sense of like strategically help them. Because I mean,
Yeah.
content sometimes for brands, a lot of brands now have to do content to kind of raise profile, brand awareness, those kind of things, and help themselves sell stuff. Whereas before, they weren't really interested in it as much. It was kind of the normal traditional channels that they might just go down, um, and not really gain that much in the sense of like interactions and stuff online. Um, I think sometimes people actually want stuff that's actually tangible and the sort of that helping brands tell brand stories and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
more important than ever now, I think.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm gonna shift the questions here a little bit to something that is I've always wondered. So, you're in the perfect kind of position to have oversight on designers moaning, which I'm sure you get plenty of, and clients moaning, which you probably get plenty of as well. And this would be helpful, I guess, to any designer coming into the industry thinking about going freelance. What are the kind of the biggest gripes for the B2B, B2C clients? What do we need to show them more of as a independent freelancer to kind of get them more on board? Like what is the kind of the things we're lacking more of when you go to show a portfolio or show a case study?
Firstly, I think you probably, if you're a designer, you have to design a portfolio around the kind of places you want to work. So
Okay.
a lot of brands or a lot of companies or agencies or whoever it is that you're approaching, sometimes you can have amazing work, but they might not specifically see what they want for a specific project
Hmm.
in your portfolio. The reality is you're not going to have work that's going to be suitable to everyone. So there's not like one fix it all answer of like you put X, Y, and Z into a show reel and like all of a sudden everyone's gonna be all over you for work.
Yeah.
Um, I think sometimes it kind of stems almost back to like what do you want to produce and understand your niche in the sense of
Yeah.
if you want to do more branding y projects and stuff like that, often like it's a lot of dynamic typography that people like to see.
Yeah.
Um, if it's more, if you like to do like more B2B stuff, explainer kind of videos, then people like to see explainer videos or like dynamic shapes and sort of that kind of motion graphics.
Yeah.
Um, it's very much dependent on the kind of places you want to go to. But
Yeah.
that being said, if I was to give someone advice on a show reel, for example, for a motion graphics portfolio, get brand logos and the best looking project in the first 10, 15, 20 seconds
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
a show reel. The amount of people that I would see show reels for, and the first 30 seconds is boring, and the second 30 seconds, I think actually you're amazing. But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
know that if I send it to my clients, it's a harder sell because they're not going to make it past the first 30 seconds like I will
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
So true.
make sure that you get the best looking project and also the best brands as well, regardless of what the project is. If you've got a Nike project, put it in there anyways, even if it's just to show the Nike logo.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it shows trust. It shows someone trusted you to work on that
yeah,
project, whether it's like the best project you've ever done or like the most mediocre project you've
yeah,
ever done. It doesn't really matter. It's about the trusting. Because I think the damaging myth of the work should sell itself can sometimes warp the perspective my side where they're like, oh, if I just put all my best work there, yeah,
yeah,
but make sure it has some recognition, like someone recognizes a logo or a brand for sure.
I think like recognizing logos and stuff, it is major. I think like in websites and stuff like that. If you've worked with loads of brands, I would plaster logos all over the website just really easily so that people can see it.
Yeah,
Um, just get the best looking stuff at the forefront of people's minds, because the reality is, I know from my perspective, if I'm searching for a job, for example, I know that I will realistically understand if someone's portfolio is right for this job in 5 seconds
yeah,
from
yeah.
so sometimes I don't even make it to 10 seconds.
Because
So
you know what the client is thinking also, and there's this kind of thing of it's a like I'll be asked, "Oh, can you make glasses?" I goes, "Yeah, I can model glasses," and I'll show them maybe some optical glasses. I mean, "Oh no, it's not sunglasses. Sorry, you're looking for the job." But a lot of designers will moan about that, but what they don't realize is the reason the client isn't going for you is a trust thing. It's like
mm,
they just need to feel confident that you could do it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. Some people will
yeah,
take that personally. It's like, I can do it though.
yeah,
And I think there needs to be more of a conversation understanding around that for designers that, like, as you said, section your portfolio to show that you can do these specific examples of what you're looking to do, basically.
yeah. I mean, like I think what you said there about not taking it personally, I think is a major thing as well, because like there are people that take it personally if you don't get certain projects, and like it is really hard not to. But sometimes you just have to accept that like you're not right for every kind of project. And although, I mean, I've lost count of how many times I've said this to editors and stuff like that, is I know you can do it, in the sense of I know if I put you on this project you can do it, but if I send your portfolio to them, they're just not going to choose you.
Yeah,
um, I know you can do it, and you know you can do it easily, but like there's nothing, if they don't see it in your portfolio, they just are not going to go for you. Like it's
it's a
just
trust thing. Yeah,
like if they, the reality is that they'll find someone with a portfolio where like they can see exactly what they want to make, and they can almost like point at someone's portfolio and say, we want to make that, what you've done there, and like just go and make that, basically.
because it is a business. At the end of the day, we're not.
Yeah,
We need to realize we're making.
it's the bane of
We're
my life. It's like doing the recruitment stuff is just the bane of my life. And understanding that like I've got 30 designers that can go and do this, but like in portfolios, I've got maybe three or four that have stuff to show, unless someone else has specific examples to go and show.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I must have said that to you at some point. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, no, like my biggest your biggest gripe with me, I know, is probably like because my portfolio will try and do everything. And I just can't get away. That's what I like to do. But I know you've said to me in the past, like, look, I know you can do it, but you have too many styles. And I'm like, that's fine. Look, I'll move on.
Yeah,
And that's just the way it is sometimes.
like for me personally, I love it when designers do a little bit of everything, because I have various things I can put people into and understand actually you can do maybe a variety of things. And actually, if you're able to do loads of things, it actually, when you get into clients, actually plays in your favor,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
because they keep you on for various things, here and there. Like they could go in and just you would just be on a booking for months. I mean, there's been loads of times where I've had designers that I've said to them like, I'm going to try and find you a job now, because you're going to go in somewhere and like I'm not going to see you for 6 months,
Yeah,
because they're
yeah,
going to keep you in. And
yeah.
inevitably, it usually does happen that way.
That's brilliant though.
It's good,
Um,
but it's just it's the initial getting in, like the initial first impression. I think is what people underestimate sometimes. Of like, you have to remember that people don't know you. So like there is that trust element of like, if someone comes and tries to sell you something completely out of the blue and you can't see what you're looking for, it's kind of hard if you don't know them at all,
yeah, yeah.
um, to kind of buy into it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've just started a studio, which
Yeah.
is I find really interesting. Where are you seeing the opportunities, and not to get like, you don't want to give away all your secrets there, but where are you seeing the opportunities for like smaller studios, independent designers? Like, is there a shift at the moment that people can maybe take advantage of and get some value from?
I mean, like brand side stuff, like
Okay.
outside of the areas of like typical advertising. Um, I think people forget sometimes that there's lots of other sectors that you can actually go and work in, like whether it's fintech or whether you want to go and sort of do product startups or you want to go and do like only brands, sort of like 3D product
Yeah,
video,
yeah,
stuff like that. There's realms outside of the traditional agency model. You don't have to go and get work from agencies anymore. um, Brands are actually trying to do stuff themselves. So a
okay,
lot of the time, you would actually have probably more success and actually probably more of a day rate as well
yeah,
going directly to brands.
yeah.
Um, we don't really work for the studio. We don't work as much with agencies anymore. Most of our clients are brand stuff,
That's so
um,
interesting.
just because agencies should really use a studio like ours in a sense of like it's scalable and like there's no bottom line cost for them and they can kind of produce stuff as and when they want to with no sort of like commitment to like having to pay us a salary for
Yeah.
like however long they need to.
So there's less of a race to the bottom with the kind of direct to company, direct to brand stuff versus the
Yeah, I think
like,
there is, but I think what you have to remember is some like those brands are used to paying what you would class as
this is
much
so
more.
true. Yeah,
So like what you're classing as a day rate and an expensive day rate, you have to remember that they're actually used to paying three, four, five x that
yeah. Yes, that's
for an
so true.
agency to go and do it.
Yeah,
So you can't really be expensive compared to an agent unless you go and charge silly money and like you don't offer anything else and you're just a freelancer.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you might actually be kind of like pricing yourself out, but brands some actually want to work with good people now that enable them to go and help their own studios. I think brands are starting more and more their own studios now.
We've seen it with Revolut actually. Revolut
Yeah,
have their own in-house studio.
yeah, loads of people do. So like, I mean, I know a couple of clients of mine that were like either studios or agencies that have lost a couple of big clients because the clients have just said, actually, we're going to try and do it ourselves. So like
Yeah,
the 500 grand they might be spending with them on a campaign, they're actually just going to put into hiring people, and we'll hire a creative director and a studio manager and maybe one or two designers, and like we'll just do it ourselves.
and there's a huge like the ability to be agile serves a massive purpose for those brands because they're already being priced out of it as it is. So if you can start something small and just be agile with them, you're doing quite well.
Yeah, I think it's like with brands, is their budgets are staying the same or getting less. Like they're not agencies are not having brands increase budgets. Brands can't afford to because people aren't buying as much product as they were before. Like if Coca-Cola stops selling as much Coca-Cola cans, they can't spend as much on marketing. So
Yeah.
like they find other ways to go and do the stuff that they have to go and produce.
What agencies and studio is there any agencies, studios, brands that are catching your eye, doing things differently at the moment that you like?
I think so. I always draw back to like Uncommon as like the stuff that they do. I
Yeah.
think they do super cool work. So like if I was looking at like independents and stuff like that that kind of do work, which actually I look at them and I actually think, "Do you know what, that's actually a pretty good idea."
Yeah.
Um, those kind of independent agencies. I think there's still loads of 3D places that like still do amazing work. So
Yeah.
you look at places like Future Deluxe or
Yeah.
Man
For sure.
Machine
Yeah.
or Builders Club or Found or any of those kind of 3D
Yeah.
studios. I still think 3D is like majorly there's levels going up and up and up in 3D a lot of the time now.
Yeah.
So
And
I actually
the entry level into 3D is getting lower and lower. Like to enter it and to try and start playing with it. Obviously, the standard to make incredible 3D work is so high still,
mm,
but to get into it, it's getting easier and easier, and the resources out there is insane. So I definitely think it's a little bit underutilized to a certain degree.
I think it's still reasonably new in the sense of like I still think that people don't fully understand how they can
It's
leverage
growing.
3D in sort of certain areas. Because I mean,
There's a fear of it as well because it's so technical.
yeah, there's like a massive fear of like, oh, actually, well, how do we actually go about doing that in 3D? And I think sometimes clients almost approach 3D with the wrong mindset in the sense that they think that doing a 3D product piece is just going to be cheaper than going and actually shooting a product video like a
Yeah,
TVC or something like that.
yeah,
just not the way it works.
It's not. You could do it so cheap. You could a little
Yeah,
green screen studio, your iPhone done.
yeah. As soon as you start like going and talking about like we're doing Houdini and we're doing all those kind of things, and it's just like actually you're looking at like a big chunk of
You're
change.
looking at 50 grand at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like we're talking about like a lot of money to go and do this stuff, but effectively with 3D you can do whatever you want. You're not restricted by anything really outside of like render times and actual timescales are going to produce stuff. Like look at some of the stuff that like Future Deluxe do, even as like R&D projects. Like
Yeah, so
they look
cool.
unbelievable. Some of the
Yeah.
stuff that they do. As a brand, if you're able to commit that money, yeah, I do think that's still a bit of an unknown quantity of like where actually it can go. Because you look at things like um, Unreal Engine and stuff like that, all the stuff that can be
It's
done
incredible. Yeah.
in just yeah,
And
way
it's so fast as well.
yeah.
Yeah. You touched on something interesting there, and I've come across this so many times. So if you go to shoot like a product, you end up and you do it all in 3D. Do you think there's the problem with 3D is sometimes it's like it's overdone, or there's too much technical jargon around it? Like as you said, so many things. And I remember I worked in well, I worked in Snapchat. I worked with a compositor. He was my manager,
Mm.
and he used to always go, "If we can do it in Photoshop, let's do it in Photoshop." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, let's do it." And he was just this like very nuanced genius at like making things look like it was 3D without needing to go through massive render times and crazy Houdini simulations. And those things are definitely needed sometimes. But you see that kind of sometimes is a mistake of overcomplicating a project with like technical tools.
Sometimes I think people do. I think, but that's also, I think, it goes back to like a lack of understanding of like what is actually able to be done and what needs to
Yeah.
be take it to like other levels. Sometimes, um, I think like specialist 3D studios will understand like what's doable and what's achievable within a certain budget. Whereas I think if there's someone else that's maybe experimenting with 3D a little bit more, it's kind of you kind of feel like you that's what you have to go to without having to
Yes.
do all of the other steps of like style frames or whatever it is you want to kind of go and do.
You're quite busy at the moment. Do you find any time for your hobbies or to go back to video at the moment? Do you have any pursuits outside the agency and recruitment sector, or are you just like absolutely swamped with that stuff?
Apart from being addicted to golf, not really. So like I think one thing that I'm keen on sort of progressing with is the studio part of unorthodox just because um it provides value to a lot of places. I mean, we've still not to this day. I mean, we've been going for what like a year now with some of the brands that we worked with. We've done stuff with places like McLaren and sort of War
Wow.
Child and sort of those kind of things to like do cool projects for them. And I think we've not spoken to anyone really that doesn't see value in like what it is that we do. So
Yeah.
I think that's where most of my time at the moment is kind of embedded in a lot of that kind of stuff. And actually getting involved in like the nitty gritties of projects and stuff now.
And is that help? Do you think that side of doing that stuff with unorthodox is even helping you more with the recruitment side, or do you see yourself veering towards unorthodox full time if you can do that?
I can do both. Like so, I mean, unorthodox is kind of both, anyways. But
Yeah.
I think there is an element of like it needs both to this extent of someone might not always need a talent studio or a talent business, or they might not need a studio. Sorry. So it depends on what part people kind of want. Sometimes people do want like a freelancer,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
just as like a one-off. Sometimes people want to take um, someone and let them have full creative control of projects,
Yeah. Yeah.
like we can step in and deliver something really cool. Um, there will always be that freelance model moving forward. Like freelance is not going anywhere for that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
I think it's actually going to increase in the next while, especially with
Yeah,
the way the economy is, and I think that PAYE thing definitely made
yeah,
made clients think about like, okay, we need to be more agile with our budgets.
yeah. I think like freelancers still have like a part to play in a lot of that kind of stuff. So I think for me, I still enjoy doing the freelance stuff. I still enjoy talking to designers. I still enjoy helping people fill schedules and sort of get opportunities that they might not have had
Yeah.
I didn't introduce them to a cool studio and they've got a chance to do like a really cool project and it enables them to go and get another work. Um, that's where I kind of take satisfaction in that kind of side of things. So I'm actually keen to continue to build and grow both.
That's cool.
Um,
It's an advantage anyway moving forward because then you're building your pool, aren't you? Of
yeah, yeah.
customers.
I mean, it also doing the studio stuff has actually opened my eyes to what my clients deal with on the other side of
Which is tough. We need to empathize with them more a bit, I
yeah,
think, for
it
sure.
is not easy at all. So, like, I think sometimes when you're trying to get budgets from clients, you're trying to work out budgets, you're trying to work out schedules, those kind of things. And then you've got me on the other end of the email going, "Oh, what about the sponsor?" It's like, actually, I
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
get like great some people sometimes. Um, but I do think that there's a benefit to doing both, which is why,
Because you're building stronger relationships, which at the end of the day is going to keep everyone in work. I think
yeah,
people think about it. Yeah, the work's important, the portfolio is important, but we forget it's the people that actually hire us and give us our salary.
the relationships are more important than anything really. I mean, you
Yeah,
could have a way outdated portfolio, and I know loads of people who've got a way outdated portfolio and are always in work, and
yeah,
like they don't have a chance to update their portfolio.
because they're so busy.
They're so busy.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause they know people and like they have good relationships with people, and people know them as a person that they can go to. Um, sometimes I think it being easy to work with and like not being a pain to or
yeah,
like awkward to work with is actually a massively underrated skill. I think it's the most important thing outside of anything else.
yeah.
Really,
I agree.
it's more important than having logos on your website. If you're known as a good person to work with, a lot of my clients that I work with, or I'll often get a lot of my business through sort of referrals if someone goes to another company or stuff like that. A lot of it's just because I'm easy to work with in the sense of like I'm not phoning you every week to harass you to try and give me some jobs, or
Yeah,
sort of like I don't get arsy if like a pencil falls through or all
yeah,
those.
yeah,
It's kind of like sometimes, even though it's frustrating, you kind of have to sort of say, "Do you know what? It's not a problem," even though it
yeah.
might slightly be a problem for you. But like you kind of have to just say, "Look,
You've
I'm."
got to buck up and internalize that.
Like, you've got to go and internalize it and like go and scream into a pillow or something after
Yeah,
you send a reply email or something. But it's being that easy to work with is such a game changer for people. Like I've
yeah,
spoken to so many people, freelancers. Some of them they're actually really talented and have done good jobs on projects. But I just think, actually, do you know what? I don't feel like you're easy to work with from my
yeah,
perspective. So I might be standoffish in the sense of like I might actually give you projects that
yeah, yeah,
end to someone else who I know is like super easy going and I can just plug them into a team and they can just get on with it
yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I totally agree with that. It's the relationship thing is so it's the like that concept that some designers we want to be this genius in the corner doing the best work ever and everyone leave us alone. And
yeah,
it's that model is so dead and
yeah.
outdated. It's not
You
there.
can't do that as a professional. Like you can't and I know it's hard because I used to be the other side of like I used to when I was grading my project, I close all the curtains and I sit there in the dark and I'll go on DaVinci and I'll be grading a project for a day.
Yeah,
But as a professional, you can't really do that really. Like you have to
yeah,
be get along with, you have to be personable and like otherwise people aren't going to remember you.
yeah.
Um,
And remember, yeah, being remembered is probably the most important
so
part.
many people that are reaching out now to clients, even with like all the MPC, the mill, all those kind of things, those companies going under, a lot of those people, and rightly so, are trying to get work for themselves as freelancers and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
So there's loads more people that are reaching out to clients. I think people have to remember sometimes that you're not the only person that people are talking to often. Like
yeah,
they might have a bank of designers of 20, 30, 40. Some companies now, if they put on LinkedIn 100, 200 designers that they might go and try and get a list of
yeah,
which maybe they'll have 4 or 5 of those that they'll regularly call and like get on projects as their
yeah.
first go-tos. The differentiating factor for that is they're the easiest to work with. They're
Yes.
they enjoy working with them.
Yeah,
Um,
that is so true. I think remembering every time you're going forward for a project, just remember you're on a short list, and it helps the bruised ego a bit at the end of it.
yeah, like it's 100% like any of the things with like recruitment and stuff like that. Like I think sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, don't put clients on the website because people will go and business develop your clients and sort of all of those kind of things." But I accepted a long time ago that like if I work with the best places and I do work with some of the best places, like they're going to have people reach out to them because
Yeah,
everyone work with them. Like
yeah, exactly.
I have to focus on being personable and like forming a relationship with my clients to be able to have them use me or like want to use me.
And
It's
I think designers forget that about recruiters. I think it's actually a nice note to end on, is that like a rep, a recruiter, a producer, if they find you work, they've usually built up their relationship with people.
yeah,
Like they've have a strong network, and if you find a good recruiter, rep or producer to work with, you're ending up in a position where they've done like that work for you,
mm,
and that I think that's underappreciated sometimes.
yeah. I think I like it is relationships in the sense of um people leverage another person's relationship but for their benefit, which again is cool. Like if I place someone into a client, for example, that I've worked with for 4, 5, 6 years, if I'm sending you, this is going to sound big headed, but if I'm sending you, it has an air of credibility because of
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
the other people that I've put in that have done a good job in the background. So they think if I put in this guy forward or I'm putting this girl forward, they must be to a certain level because we've had this person and this person, this person through him before.
yeah,
It sometimes is an easier foot in the door. And I think that's what people sometimes forget with recruiters, sometimes good recruiters, by the way, not bad ones. Because like I know you
a
said,
big asterisk next to that.
yeah, yeah, I just wanted to pre-phrase that before people start coming at me in the comments. But um, good ones, like they are, uh, they give you an air of credibility because if you work with them, the same as you as a good designer will give them good credibility. It's just it's history, like it's
Yeah,
relationship you build. I know loads of good recruiters that I've worked with um, that actually are good ones, and I think sometimes people forget that sometimes that like that fair enough there are a fair amount of crap ones out there, but actually there are some good ones out there as well, and
yeah,
like
yeah,
people are actually invaluable for designers to work with to try and find jobs and stuff.
yeah,
Um, whether you're trying to get advice on like CVs or all those kind of things, like you don't actually, as a designer, you don't actually pay a recruiter anything really.
yeah. We forget
Take
this.
most of the money,
They're free consultation.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
free consultation that I've given to designers. If I was to charge for him, I'd be a millionaire. Uh,
Well, I don't know if you would. You'd be a millionaire in money owed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's, yeah, it's just it's a weird thing. Like you don't actually pay recruiters anything. So I think sometimes if you find a good one, the relationship with a good recruiter, like I've worked with a lot of my people for years and years. I mean, even before we started working together, I knew of you on my first agency for years and years. So like
Yeah,
I know a lot of my people for a good amount of time. So a lot of bashing that goes on LinkedIn, I think sometimes. I mean, I even
yeah,
had people that were like, when IR35 came out, like accusing that like somehow I was benefiting from IR35 and sort of
yeah. That
all
was
of that kind of stuff. I think sometimes we can get like lose a bit of perspective here as well.
yeah. IR35 affects everyone, and I think too much was made about that. I think that was a stealth tax on.
I've got PTSD of IR35 to be honest. I
We
don't
all fucking do.
is this due
Yeah,
to
yeah. No,
uh,
I don't know anyone that has got caught for it.
nah, not one. I don't know anyone who's been taken to court for it in all
Yeah,
honesty.
yeah,
It just I don't know. I think it's a tough one to enforce, but at the
yeah.
end of the day, if you're a big agency, you're in trouble. If they do come up at some point in 10 years' time and you're sort of a large agency that uses a lot of freelancers,
That's the
you
problem.
are in trouble.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Well
tax
done.
is not like
Anyway, we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for coming on and spending your time and giving probably more invaluable advice to me and other designers now that can benefit
no
from
worries, my
this.
friend. No worries. It's
Appreciate it.
a pleasure. And I like to see what you're doing on this kind of stuff as well. I see a few of the people that I know come on this podcast and stuff. So
Yeah.
shout out to you as well for producing some stuff and sort of forging your own path to market yourself and stuff like that.
Thank you very much.